One thing's for sure, in the last couple of weeks, Liam Sheedy and Brian Cody, they'll just be thinking of ways that how can we get at the opposition. And something that came to mind as regards Tipperary and the struggles they had with the puckouts in the Munster final was and we know Kilkenny are traditionally very good under the puckouts, and you know that all the six forwards will get out, have their hurleys up, make it very difficult to just pick an easy puck out. So where are the opportunities? Because there's always opportunities in an opposition team. For Tipperary, they want, if possible, to run the ball out from the back, because you just don't want to hit a lot of ball into a 50-50 scenario down to that half back line, which isn't a huge half back line, but a very strong half back line in the air, with the midfield swarming in on top of it as well, and the half forward line of Wally Walsh, TJ Reid and John Donnelly coming back as well, foraging, looking for the ball. So hit the ball short to Cathal Barrett, who you'd imagine will play a corner back, and if he's to run at his marker, who I think it kind of stands to reason that that's going to be Richie Hogan. Richie is likely to play inside. Cathal Barrett's got great speed, and talking to so many Kilkenny former players and teammates this year, they've kind of spoken about how Richie Hogan's not fully right physically in terms of his back, and you know he was taken off early against Limerick, other games against Wexford, even in the Leinster final, only brought on in extra time, or injury time I should say. So is he 100%, and can he chase after Cathal Barrett? If short puck out goes to Cathal Barrett, does he want to chase after him? Because when Barrett's on form, he's like a ball of lightning coming at you, and if he can solo past him, draw another man, pop a hand pass out to Brendan Maher, Noel McGrath, whoever it might be looking for the ball, then Tipperary are probably in business, far more so than if they go long all the time. The other option then is go short to any of the Tipperary backline, full backline I should say, and give it straight back to Hogan, and let him go long enough that he's striking the ball 10 yards, 15 yards further out than he would have been. Make sure the forwards know that as soon as he gets the ball back, that there's movement, as in whether you're coming back down the field, whether you're overloading to one side, and then Hogan, when he receives the ball on the 21, we'll say, or even the 14, he can then drive it over the Kilkenny half back line and perhaps into pockets of space. Now that works both ways, so Owen Murphy could easily do that too, and he's very, very comfortable carrying the ball out the field, so there's definitely a bit of joy to be had for both sides there. But I think particularly for Tip, because they have struggled with the long ball, and the half forward line options for hitting 50-50 puckouts probably aren't as good as Kilkenny's if they go along on Wally Walsh, as I said, John Donnelly, TJ Reid. Even if the likes of Colin Fennelly comes out, he mightn't catch 100 balls, but very few are going to catch them over him. A stat I was doing after looking at the media night programme that Kilkenny produced was 96 championship games Brian Cody's been around for. He's lost just 18% of them, so that's 17 losses out of 96, 7 draws and 72 wins. And I know everyone just talks about his record and how unbelievable it is, but just worth pointing that out again. The changes since 2016, these teams met 3 years ago, I think Kilkenny have definitely jumped on an awful lot. And just looking at the players that they've brought in since then, there's 6 guys who hadn't been there before, all across the pitch. So Hugh Lawler, Paddy Deegan, Conor Brown, Richie Leahy, John Donnelly and Adrian Mullen. That's an awful lot of talent to bring in the team, and an awful lot of the guys that are playing in their first All-Ireland final, and they weren't part of the panel back then. For Tip, it's 2 guys that haven't played in an All-Ireland before, so Brian Hogan and Barry Heffernan, so they're new on the panel. Then Niall O'Mara and Jason Ford, they wouldn't have started in 2016, but it's not a new thing for them, and even Ford started or played a part in the 2014 finals as well. So if there are nerves, perhaps it's more likely that it's going to be on the Kilkenny side of things, but that's quite a changeover in 3 years to have, like let's say 2/5 of your team changed. For Tip, another thing opportunity that might be there is, assuming Conor Brown starts, at this moment in time the teams haven't been named, he is probably going to go on Noel McGrath, do a man-marking job, blot him out of the game just like he did with Cian Lynch. And of course the fact that Kilkenny were on top across the field in terms of work rate, that's going to make it more doable for Conor Brown. So in this situation, he's going to go on Noel McGrath, and if he's got it in his head, like the next couple of days, the last couple of days, my only job, I'm not asked to go out there and beat Tipperary with my hurling. It's my maiden year. What I've been asked to do is go out and shut down Noel McGrath, stand on him all game. If you're Noel McGrath, if you're Liam Sheedy, are you thinking, right, where would Conor Brown not like to play? Maybe we'll start Noel McGrath centre forward, put Dan McCormick midfield, and he'll probably be in and around the middle sector anyway. Is that the job that is Conor Brown going to get spooked by that? Maybe he won't, because he's a good player. And I remember seeing him against Cork in the league at the start of the year and thinking, this guy is well worth using. But does it give him something different to think about? And if Pádraig Walsh wants to sit from centre back, can he sit from centre back if Noel McGrath is there? Even so, you might see Conor Brown go back on Noel McGrath no matter where he goes. But it gives Kilkenny a question to answer. And Noel McGrath did start against Wexford at centre forward, so it's not unusual a position for him. Obviously, he played there for many years. For Kilkenny, they've got to be thinking about isolating Barry Heffernan at fullback, assuming he does start, because Tip don't have a natural fullback in the team. Now, if James Barry was to come in, he's the closest thing to a natural fullback that Tip have, and even so, he would have been converted from a halfback himself. So try and convert one of the newbies to fullback. Seamus Kennedy has played in there before, but not a whole pile. Brendan Maher's obviously been in there too. But I think Barry Heffernan, he played there against Clare. I think if John Conlon had his shooting boots on, he might have got a few scores that day. But again, first All-Ireland final for Barry Heffernan, did really, really brilliantly on Lee Chin in the semi-final. But that was very much in a roaming role. So would he like to be full-back on his own? That's something that probably Kilkenny will look at. If Tip drop Dan McCormick into midfield, Pádraig Walsh will want to sit. But for Tipperary, what will they do? They'll probably, not only will Pádraig Walsh sit, but I think the guys that you wouldn't expect to score 6 or 7 points from playing, Niall O'Mara and I'd say Dan McCormick, they probably won't mark them overly tightly. So Kilkenny will sit off those, the likes of Conor Fogarty, Paddy Deegan, Pádraig Walsh. That's probably where, again, as they did against Cork and Limerick, they're going to sit back and not necessarily follow those guys out. So Tip could look at the idea of playing shooters on the wing. It didn't work for Bubbles necessarily on the wing against Wexford, but they play very differently to Kilkenny. So while it didn't work for Bubbles at Wire at wing forward then, it might work this time. And the other thing for Kilkenny, or for Tipperary, if they're looking to expose Kilkenny, is use the width as much as possible. So if you have Jason Ford on the wing, if you have Bubbles on the wing, tell them to stand right out on the sideline so Kilkenny can't just bunch in the middle, and try and use that width as much as possible. Even Seamus Callan out there as well. Tip would probably be looking at the idea of isolating Hugh Lawler fullback. He has looked really game. He looks like a really good prospect, but again, it's his first All-Ireland final. If you can isolate him one-on-one and Seamus Callan, I think Tipperary would feel that they could get a bit of joy about popping a bit of ball in front of him. The other thing is Joey Holden. He's had a good season, but it doesn't take away from the fact that he was swapped marker 3 times in the first 20-25 minutes against Cork. He did struggle a bit during that spell. If Tip could get either Holden or Hugh Lawler in one-on-one scenarios, or even a 2-on-2 scenario back there, and try and draw Pádraig Walsh away from sweeping, I think there's a bit of joy to be had there. But it's the same at the other end as well. If TJ Reid is in there on his own and gets good ball in, even if it's not good ball, he's that good. Even with Wally Walsh, there could definitely be joy to be had for Kilkenny at the other end as well. So it is all about identifying where are the weaknesses on the other team, and that's what the management will have spent time doing. And then just the final thing I'd refer to is the shot map. When Kilkenny played Limerick a couple of weeks ago, the red is the shots that Limerick missed. And you can see that so few of the Limerick shots, now the ones that are underlined are frees, but so few of the Limerick shots there are from play in blue, are right up the middle. They were forced out the sideline. Kilkenny choked up the middle, and this is why I'm saying that Tipperary might need to shoot from the wings, because the centre is going to be choked up and you need shooters out in the wings. So the likes of Bubbles, Ford and Callan might be brought out there. So those are some of the areas that the teams will look to target. Please message in if you think that there are other areas that the two teams will look at.